Why should democracy not have worked in the Philippines?
It was partially the government's fault. First of all, you see, liberal democracy, as the United States knows it, was the result of a growth of how many centuries, how many years in your country. All of a sudden, it's transplanted to Philippine soil. Have you ever attempted to transplant an apple from the United States to a tropical country like ours? Well, it just won't grow. The reason for this is it needs time to acclimatize. This is a tropical climate.
How much time?
Nobody knows. I don't. We tried to get used to it, and my predecessor somehow convinced you that we were democratic, but we all knew that this was some kind of a mask which we had put over our face. We were trying to aid you. And yet we didn't have the basic requirements: education, distribution of wealth, economic equality, equal opportunity, and the most important, belief in that. Many of our people, especially the rich, didn't believe in democracy. They believe in maintaining their privileges and obtaining favors from government. They had private armies. But the great number of people had been used to a prototype democracy. Because in the olden days, even before the arrival of the Spaniards in 1521, the chieftains, especially the war chiefs, were elected by the tribes. And so there was some kind of a prototype, the beginnings of a populist type of leadership. And so there was this discontent, valid grievance on the part of a great number of our people. But there was nothing that they could do. And the only alternative was violence. To bring about a radical restructuring and bring down, let us say, those who had imposed their leadership, taken over from the old Spanish grandees, and joined up with the Chinese-oriented merchants to control both politics and economy in the country, were for the maintenance of the status quo. And we all knew that we were sitting on top of a volcano, a social volcano. Nobody knew when it would erupt. And there was no way of aborting it. It was just a matter of time.
If one grants that as an accurate historical analysis, and I know that a lot of people do grant it, the second question then is, in reestablishing order, has your regime done so by the use of a number of techniques which throughout your career you have criticized? For instance, torture, for instance, the denial of due process. Is this necessary to any rule by martial law?
There is no need to torture anyone, and we don't. It's not a policy. There may be exceptions, but these are all aberrations, and they don't mean complicity, conformity, or even conspiracy on the part of the political leadership. This we disavow, we condemn, we punish. We punish anyone, whether he be in the armed forces or a follower of the leadership. Anyone who utilizes his authority or power to enforce by violence, unacceptable violence, except by legitimate combat, any decisions of the government. But the important thing is, first of all, that while we sought to maintain order by dismantling the apparatus of the rebellion, we also sought to extirpate the causes of rebellion, the valid grievances that may exist by economic, social, and even political reform. And this is the rub, as you would put it, because the legalists, of which there are many here in our country, there are a great number of lawyers here, do not believe in the use of martial law powers for radical reform. They believe that we, or I, should stick to the old classical concept of martial law, which means consolidate the status quo, maintain it as it is. It may have its deficiencies. It is not for martial law to correct it. It is for another institution to correct it. And I maintain that is not so. For if the purpose of martial law is to eliminate rebellion and maintain order, then one must eliminate the cause of rebellion. And the cause of rebellion may be economic and social inequality, injustice, the right of equal opportunity. Now, equal opportunity means greater liberty, greater freedom. For instance, the man who is held in bondage to the soil, he's not the equal of the man who has his own house, his own business source of income. By no means can anybody say that he is the equal. No, can anybody say that he has an equal opportunity? His children would never be going to school. Well, we have given him the chance to send his children to school, make them professionals, lawyers, doctors, whatever they may be able to attain. But we give them the opportunity now to develop their God-given and God-endowed faculties. And we also give them the opportunity to a decent and dignified type of a life. We give him land. But that's not all. Land reform, as we practice it here, is not just a mere doling out of land and turning men into beggars. We turn them into respectable and dignified and self-respecting men. We teach them how to use the land to produce income and produce decency, produce dignity.
I think a lot of people who have observed the Philippines during the past several years join in complimenting you on your land reform program. They do not feel that much has been accomplished, if anything, to help the urban poor.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. We have increased the minimum wage from 4 pesos to 13, 15 pesos, granting the erosion of the value of the peso, say even up to 50%. We have trebled and quadrupled the earnings of laborers. Now, how can that be so? At the same time, we have increased employment from 8% down to 4.5%. Those are the figures in unemployment. The enemy of the poor, which is inflation, from 44% down to 7%. Now, how can anybody deny all these facts?
Well, the specific charge is that in the last 3 years there has been a net reduction in the real income of the Filipino working in the cities.
That's pure stupidity.
It is.
Of course it is. It's ridiculous. They throw this around without any basis whatsoever. I can imagine people charging me with, say, fascism and the use of authority to perpetuate myself. That I will say may have a reason, because I have proclaimed martial law. But there is no reason for anyone to say that the Filipino masses, including the urban poor, have not been given a decent life. We are increasing our expenses for socialized housing, socialized prices for the consumer goods. Our cost of living here is very much lower than any other country in Southeast Asia, including our big neighbors. Now, at the same time, the more important thing is the Filipino, poor or not, now has pride in this country and has the equal opportunity to be anything. Be president if he can. Before you could not become anything else except perhaps remain as a janitor, a laborer, or a tenant. No, now you can aspire for almost anything.
Why didn't he have an opportunity before?
Because he was held back by those who were in power, including those who controlled the economic wealth of the country. We have increased the income of the lower classes of our people. We are creating a strong middle class. Before I became president, there was no such thing as a middle class. You were either very poor or very rich, no in between. Well, we are creating a middle class now, and a dignified middle class, not the middle class dependent on, say, favors from the government, but the middle class of small businessmen, professionals, and civil servants.